Hello everyone and welcome back to Ion Radio. You are watching the Backseat Admiral and I am John. I'm going to wait to get confirmation real fast from the chat to see if we have my voice sound coming over before I continue talking. So, just wanted to welcome everyone. Today is Sunday, August 22nd. This episode correlates to episode season 1.08. Awesome. Thank you, Scott, for letting me know that we can hear me. So, we have a lot to talk about. We actually have some news in Star Wars Armada, so I decided to just take this episode and instead of talking about our little strategy segment, which I normally start with, we're going to start with the announcement, my thoughts on it, and things like that. So I'm right now live on the camera, and Ken is live in the chat. He's controlling the Ion Radio YouTube person, if you would. So he's going to be helping me answer questions and things like that. So let's get right into it. We'll flip over to the announcement, and I'll go ahead and read it and tell you my thoughts. So, Atomic Mass Games posted this earlier this week for Star Wars Armada. As we move into 2022 and beyond, we are excited to continue support for Star Wars Armada by prioritizing reprints of existing products and through organized play initiatives. However, we currently do not have any new Armada products in development. We'll provide additional information as it becomes available. So the good news is that we got some news. The bad news is we're not getting really much of anything else at this time. So, I don't see this as being the end of the world, so I'll just go ahead and throw that out there. But a lot of people are taking it as the sky is completely falling, and it could be. So, we don't know yet. But it's not all bad news. I've said in a previous episode of the Backseat that one of the hardest things to get Armada going is the fact that there is no product. And it's frustrating for new players to try to start a game, which I think they should be starting this game because it's a great game, when they can't find iconic ships. You can find starter packs of, let's say, the Imperial and Rebel faction, but it is really hard to find Star Destroyers, or upgrade card packs, or squadron packs. It's actually hard to start the game, and that actually keeps Armada being so small because you can't find product. So them continuing doing reprints is actually good for people that want to play the game, because then you can find products, and then you won't have $1.5 billion on eBay selling Argatons like for $200+. That's not a good way to play the game. So they're going to be doing reprints, and they're going to be doing organized play. The extent of what that is, they haven't said. So let me now try to explain why I don't think the sky is falling, and that really has to do with a production issue. So Atomic Mass Games was handed all the Star Wars licenses pretty much at the beginning of this year from Fantasy Flight Games by their parent company, Asmodee. They haven't really talked about why they consolidated everything into one or switching companies, but who knows? It's corporate. They thought it would be best. We know that the Clone Wars factions that we had were already developed by FFG and just waiting for release. And then we can start making assumptions, because that's what we're here to do, about things. So let's just say nothing was in development else at FFG, and all development that was put on hold until the transition took place and new dev team could be put into place for development of this. At that point, that's the beginning of 2021, so we'll give them some slack, COVID, blah, 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 blah. Give them 6 months, so that was like 2 months ago. And so if we were to start a development cycle, most times development cycle to launch date for most things is roughly 2 years. And the way I see that is you have internal development, call it 6 months. This is just rough guesstimation. So 6 months internal, 6 months playtesting. This is a game that has a lot of interaction, so you need a lot of playtesting and feedback to make sure it's good. 6 months to finalize and to find producers and manufacturing overseas. And then 6 months to ship. That's a 2-year window from start to hopefully it's in the stores. And as we know, FFG, I don't think a single one of their waves actually hit stores when they thought it was going to hit stores. So we could add an additional 6 months to that. So if we were to start that then, even at the beginning of 2021, and go out 2 years to 2.5 years, that puts us at 2023 to midway through 2023. And that's really the soonest that we were probably going to get Armada if they had started it the day that it got handed over to them, which is pretty far. So that's kind of just what we found out by the announcement here. Like, that's it. There's nothing that's probably going to be released in 2022 unless it's organized play, and we have no clue what they're going to be doing with organized play. I'm hoping, this is just the hope, that they decide to actually hire a development team and then start development, and then we might see something late 2023, 2024. But that's a long time. Armada has survived very long periods of time without any releases. I believe the longest stretch that Armada has gone without a release was around the Super Star Destroyer time period, and that was about 18 months. So this will be longer, clearly. But we live in a completely different world now than back then. COVID really has rocked the entire world. It's a worldwide pandemic. And has taken hits to manufacturing side. So over in like China, who does all the plastic work, their factory, like, it goes up and down from what this is just me reading, what I read in news reports, so take it at face value. But like, they'll just shut down complete factories for COVID scares. So if you have like a lineup of, hey, we'll produce a game or something in the next 6 weeks, and then they shut down for 2 months, well, now you're 2 months behind, and then you have 6 weeks still to produce it. And then global shipping is absurd. I believe someone the other day on one of the main Armada Discords was just trying to figure out shipping, like how much it would cost to ship product from China to America, and the costs are going insane. I think they figured something like if you were to take one shipping container for the insane amount of prices that it has increased to, that each ISD would cost something like $20 to ship or something absurd. And that's just not even looking at the base cost of the ISD. That's just shipping, which is crazy because the ISDs used to be like, what, $50 before price increase, and now like vendors are like near $70. So that's a lot of cost to the consumer that will be passed on to. So is the game dead? No. Is it on life support? Yes. So it's going to be a wait and see type of thing. And some people don't like waiting for games and they just move on to the next one. Personally, I'm fine, and Ken is fine. We're just going to stick with it. We love Armada, and we love how the game works and how it is. And we want to just make sure that we're there. We have tons of plans for Armada moving forward. As you know, we've switched over to more of a season thing, and that's mainly just to organize our own thoughts. But we've finished Season 1. We're done with Season 2. I have fleets built out until Season 5. So if that says anything, that's at least that's another 40 episodes of Armada that we have at least planned out for the future. And let's talk about dead games. This just popped in my head. People say that Armada has no product being released, so it's a dead game and no one will play it and blah, blah, blah. That's not really the case. If you look at other games that even we have on this channel, like Battletech, BattleTech theoretically is a dead game too. You know, they don't really release new rules for it. It's still using like mainly the 1980 rule set. They did a Kickstarter back in July, August of 2019. So 2 years ago now, and we still are waiting for the fulfillment of that. So that's 2 years to fulfill the Kickstarter, and it was one of the biggest Kickstarters of all time. I think it grossed about $2.5 million or something insane like that. And they didn't have to make new rules. They didn't have to balance anything. They didn't have to do any play testing. All that they needed to do was make 3D models. And they had a full development team for that. And it took them 2 years to get that shipped. Armada is a much more complicated game than, hey, let's make some 3D models and print some art for an Alpha Strike card that already exists. So saying that they can try to quickly produce something for Armada is just kind of insane. Did BattleTech die? No. Is Armada going to die? No. Because what keeps a game alive is the community that plays it. There's a lot of very passionate people and stuff out there that is for Armada, and as long as we as players group together and keep playing it, we're finally able to get back into stores for a little bit in America. Like, it's just been like a month or so for a lot of the stores that I've played at in the local area. So as that becomes more of a thing, let's just keep the game alive. So, okay. That's really my thought about it. Armada's on life support, but not at our channel. We're going to keep going. We love Armada. So I'm going to look to chat, see if anyone has any major questions or anything like that. Yeah, let's see. What other things about Armada? Yeah, like I said, Ken and I have tons of plans moving forward. Honestly, the thing that's going to get in the way more so than anything is just life, because life comes up. Like, my wife and I just purchased a house, so we have to like basically close everything down for our studio, move it to the new place when we close, and then put it back up. So our production will go down for a bit, but Ken and I have already factored that all in. We are excited because you know how last year we did a March Madness? We're planning on doing it again. So we're coming up with what we need and everything for that. We'll see if IrishMadCat wants to participate and try to defend his title again. Well, I think one of the major problems with developing and reprinting at the same time is they don't have a development team really in place. From the little bits of information that you can glean from the internet, which who knows how reliable that actually is, there is no dedicated developer, singular, for Armada currently. And you probably need a team of at least 2 to 3 people to properly develop internally before kicking it over to playtesters. COVID also has a lot to do with that. So the whole last year, you probably run into a lot of liability issues if you're asking people to playtest at home with a group of people when everyone should be on lockdown. So that's a whole year of really no playtesting being done if you can't have people meet together. And technically, online play is not acknowledged by companies from like TTS or anything like that. So you can't be like, hey, we're going to use this third-party program. You guys can play with this to play test. Like, so that's not really a thing. I had another point. What was it? I'll think about it. And then I'll keep looking at this. Yeah, the product just doesn't exist out there. Like if you were to do a buying guide, maybe I'll do that in the future. Who knows? But like you start with the core set because that's the basics, and then you buy an upgrade card pack. Well, where do you find an upgrade card pack right now? They just came back into reprint and then like almost immediately sold out again. I luckily found a couple at a local store, but as much as I would like more of them, I'm actually leaving them out in the wild so that new players can find them and get into the game. Yeah, Armada has died a couple times throughout its lifespan, so this isn't new for any of us. So, and I own enough by myself, not including Ken's fleets, to pretty much do anything I want in Armada. So that won't change. I don't even really need anything else. So without any major questions on the announcement, I think we're going to flip over to talking about our last match and our game. I actually enjoyed this game. It was Tarkin vs. Grievous. This game was recorded just for being forward before it was announced that Grievous could actually fly a squadron off the board and it count for him, because previous to that it was a little bit iffy of if you could place your own squadron out of bounds to trigger and die from this. But now you can, so it might change the way Ken and I both approach Grievous, that if you could just suicide his squadrons to get his effect. So let's first look at Ken's fleet, because he was first player, so I'll do that. He has this fleet. It has some Architens, an ISD, and a Gazanti. And his commander is Grand Moff Tarkin, the OG of passing tokens in his new cost, with an Imperial Simoon. So he has Intensify Firepower on it, Gunnery Teams, and Sovereign. Sovereign's a good title to pair with Tarkin, just because you can pass out everything, and then you can change up to 3. And as long as they're in range of Sovereign 1 to 5, which it hopefully is because it's most of the board, we can change the token. So basically you get whatever token you want on 3 ships, and then all your other ships get whatever your base token was, which is really good for feeding Intensify Firepower, and then basically you're probably just concentrating fire then to trigger gunnery teams. So that is a lot of fun with that. Then he has 3 Architen command cruisers with nav teams, so Tarkin can pass them a nav dial, and they can do concentrate fire or repair or whatever they want to do. Which actually triggers off pretty nicely, and then it has Link Turbo Laser towers for some sweet rerolls of those red dice, which it will need, and then you can just set them, like, if honestly the dream is to roll, get all hits, get to do a reroll for free, and then just set it to a hit with Intensify. That's one of my favorite things to do. Doesn't usually happen, but I enjoy it. The last ship is a Gazanti Slicer Tool. I don't know how I feel about Slicer Tool as is. You can try to use Sovereign and keep it refreshing with the Tarkin tokens, but in my head I just like overplaying tokens when I'm playing token games and needing multiple commands on an ISD. I might take CommsNet instead and then pass out Confire to everyone, and then switch the Architens to 3 Navigates, and then I Intensify with the Concentrate Fire token, and then the Gazanti passes me its Concentrate Fire token, and then the ISD can do Nav or Engineer every single turn and not have to worry about trying to power its gunnery team. That's how I probably would have run it, but Ken actually got a good slicer tool off, which is pretty juicy. Delayed, I think, one turn of me trying to hit him with my fighters. That is that. So let's jump into my fleet. My fleet, this is version who even knows, because I've played a lot of Grievous recently to try to just learn him, because I think he's got a little bit of a learning curve because his play style's a little bit differently. So I approached this completely differently than most of my fleet builds. I put Grievous on a smaller ship. I put him on the Munificent, and that is because change of philosophy in how I make my Providence, which we'll see in a minute. And then I have the Hyperwave Signal Boost on it because I've never used the card before, and I was just very curious to see if I could pull it off with the Hyenas, because what Hyperspace Signal Boost does is it allows you to activate squadrons and treat them. It allows you to activate squadrons in the squadron phase and treat their attacks as if you had activated them for AI purposes. So if you could get the Hyenas to do this, they can add an additional red dice to their anti-ship, which is pretty juicy. Then I just have the stapled on Link Turbo Laser Tower because all of my attack dice are red, so I would like to re-roll them, please. So here's the Providence, and this is where you see the change in philosophy for me in how I make the Providence. Providences, for the most part, they have like almost every single upgrade. So you can really Christmas tree this ship out and make it super expensive. And that's not what I did. So I added local fire control, which allows me to get rid of my Cantain to take an additional salvo. Now I have 2 salvos. And now I can use that twice per turn if you don't accuracy them. And if I really want to go ham on it, I can do it 4 times in a turn. And I have Grievous that says I can get those back if I want to from things dying around me. Very nice. Then Flak Gun says that my dice can reach out an additional range, so my blue at red and my black at blue. So if we get into close range, I'm throwing that angry rainbow of dice at you. DBY827 Heavy Turbo Laser Towers. I hate the name of the card. But it says that during salvo, I can set a dice to a facing with a critical, which is really fun when you're throwing the angry rainbow. Throw it. Hopefully the red comes up as a hit. If it doesn't, I have next the Link Turbo Laser Towers that allows me to re-roll it. Hopefully get a hit. The blue is either going to be a hit, crit, or an accuracy, and I'm pretty happy with any of those results. And then I take that black dice, and I just flip it right over to the double hit. If I get the double hit, then I can set any of the other dice to a crit. So you're looking at a ton of damage coming from this just from salvo. And it's my main ship, and I'm going to run it right into your fleet. So your choice is, don't shoot at my main ship, or shoot at it and I'll shoot you back, and it's a fun times all around. My next ship is a hard cell comms net, and that is literally just to pass tokens and be an activation. As we get to the game overview, you can see that I pretty much just left it in the backfield and left it on its own, and it just did its own thing, passed a couple tokens, activated a couple fighters. Nothing too crazy with it. So here's my fighters. I start with both of the Tri-Fighter Aces because they're awesome. And honestly, that's where I build most of my CIS fighter list from. I start with 2, these 2. And then I fill in fighters of taste. Like, let's see, what do I want to play today? Tri-Fighters? More Tri-Fighters. Do I want to play Vultures? Yeah, we'll add some Vultures. How about some Hyenas? Cool. So I came with 4 Hyena bombers and 6 Vultures. So theoretically, that is, for generics, 10 tokens that I could either refresh or regain with Grievous. And as I mentioned at the beginning, with the Grievous now you can fly off the board, your own board edge, and trigger it. That's pretty awesome because I could just then throw Hyenas off the board and get tokens back. I'll probably do that next time. So It's a lot of fun. So I don't remember. Give me 1 second. I'll have to look something up. I don't remember who chose first for a second. I believe I chose, and I chose to be second, and I'll go over that in a minute. Just have to open a file. So Ken picked to be first player, which I would agree with his fleet, with having the Simoon and the Architens. He wanted to be first player. I actually just almost always want to be second player with this fleet, and that is mainly due to my objective pool. And so my objective pool is surprise attack, asteroid tactics, infested fields. And the reason why I wanted to go second is mainly because I want to be able to kill my own fighters. Because Grievous needs things to die to refresh tokens. And asteroid tactics and infested fields both give me the Exergoth that will attack squadrons for me. And my squadrons have very little health. So if you have squadrons, you're probably not going to pick surprise attack, because then I'll just raid all of your squadron dials away and laugh evilly. And then asteroid tactics, I get to refresh my tokens, which I want to. I'll just make like a line of asteroids because they don't affect me, and I get to refresh things from it. And I'll just move my Providence that's going to be salvoing straight up the middle, right on top of all those, and laugh evilly as we throw salvo around. And then infested fields, which I get to move obstacles, probably take a 15-point lead due to tokens, and Exergoths are in that too, so I can kill my own squadrons. So I gave this to Ken. That's a really nasty choice. And he decided to go with infested fields. Infested fields, if you maneuver the obstacles right, can really, really make the other player's day really, really bad. Recently, in a real-life game, I played this. Actually, it's been a couple months now. Time goes by really fast. But I played this, and I aligned this so this poor person I was playing with landed on 2 asteroids, a debris field, and an Exergoth with their Providence 2 turns in a row. Yuck. That, I mean, it was fun for me, but at the same time, you're looking at it and you're like, this can't be fun. That's 3 shield damage and 2 face-ups, plus to hit that, you rammed me, so that's another face-up twice, so that's like 6 hull damage for free. So just be very wary of this card if you do pick it, and know that the person could just put obstacles in your way and you'll never escape them. So let's look at the deployment and things like that. I deployed centrally and around my obstacles. Knowing that Ken didn't have any fighters, I could have been a little bit more bold and should have positioned these obstacles further out, so then they were already in the way and I didn't need to move them in a way. But life is how it is, and I didn't think of that at the time. This is why it's the Backseat Admiral. I'm looking from the past into the future, telling myself what to do. And then I have the Exergoths over here to make these obstacles hopefully not fun to land on. He has to do it anyway to gain the tokens, otherwise I will get points. Then we see, moving forward, Ken's doing a flank with the Architens, which they're good at, but I'm going to try to make that as complicated as possible by moving these obstacles. And then his Architen, his plan was to sweep around to flank on this side. My ships are just moving. I have this Providence Salvo ship that wants to be attacked. Come at me, bro, or I'll come at you. And then my fighters, I've positioned, hopefully, my Hyenas here that I could hyperwave them the next turn. We'll see if that happens. All the tokens have been gathered. I go up by 15 points, which is what Infested Field usually ends up being. And then we see full-on engagement has happened at this point, and my Providence has now jumped forward and gained the position that he wants to be in to try to kill the ISD. And the ISD has this choice of, I will fly into your fighter swarm, fly right into your Providence, or I can fly into getting hit by your Providence and Grievous that's just, doing his standard, taking credit for everything on the sideline in the Munificent. That's not a fun choice. And then these obstacles, I always point at the screen and realize you guys can't see what I'm pointing at. These obstacles are going to be moving, and I'm going to be trying to obstruct as many shots as possible coming from my side from these Architens into my Providence. I still get to throw dice back. It's an automatic damage, so why wouldn't I do it? Make you spend your tokens. The ISD kind of evaporated because of fighters and double arcing from multiple ships. And as you can see, obstacles are moving around to harass Ken on the side over here. And this Architen is getting swarmed and eaten by the Munificent and the Providence over here. And this is the round that Ken successfully got his slicer off on me, where I wanted to take these squadrons and throw them back into the fight over here, but wasn't able to move and attack, so I just had to move. That really, I think, changed the game from my perspective, mainly because my fighters didn't want to roll hits later on in the game. And then here I just played bumper cars with Ken's Architen to keep my ships where they want to be, so then I had range downfield for the ships that he was trying to fly behind me. Didn't end up mattering because dice are dice. Then my fighters needed to fly and try to get it, and I think that might be pretty much it. My ships fly off into the sunset this way, and Ken's fly off that way. I think this goes into damage. So at the end of the game, my Providence has all this hull damage, and I think all of it is from ramming. It's a missile. I don't really care. It's an expensive missile, but it's still a missile that wants to be shot at and use its salvos and things like that. So I just ram it right down the middle. Honestly, I really wish it had another offensive retrofit slot so I could put hardened bulkheads on it, because that would be a lot of fun. But I was ramming myself, ramming his ships were ramming me. And it actually almost died just from ram damage. I feel like that's actually where most of my Providences take hull damage recently, is landing on obstacles and ramming into ships, not necessarily just pure firepower that comes to it. And that's about it for that. Then we look at Ken's fleet. That last 2 turns, I really wasn't able to get any... I had good attacks that I could make on his last 2 remaining ships, but I could not get enough damage through to kill them. So they just limp by. Gazanti had 1 health and an Architens that had 4 health left, but I think my fighters completely blanked on the last 2 turns against it, or if they got a hit, they re-rolled against it. That is about it for my thoughts on this battle. This was actually a really fun game. I think that a different objective would have greatly changed this game for Ken, because I was able to just position the obstacles to be super frustrating to him. His fleet definitely wanted to go first because it's a shooting fleet, and mine's a objective based. I want to sit back and go slow. But hey, if you want me to go first, I'm more than happy with launching the Providence missile of salvo right into your face. So if anyone has any questions on this or about the announcement, go ahead and you can put it in the comments. And I'm going to probably go back through now and take a glance at the comments and things like that. Yeah, so talking about the BattleTech Kickstarter again. Yes, they ended up doing development, but that necessarily was just the bonuses and things like that. And let's be honest, they probably were doing that anyway, because that development cycle has been in place and is continuing to be in place. So they just included it in the Kickstarter, but the majority of the Kickstarter was just for miniatures, which they're still putting out. Which those miniatures are different from an Armada release due to the fact that Armada has commander cards and upgrade cards and ship cards and everything like that that needs to be tested inside faction, outside faction with things. While there's not so much of a testing of BattleTech of is this a new mech? Is this a new rule set? It's a new map, yes, which does take development time. But still, that's still a 2-year window, which is mainly what I'm trying to get across, is that if they started right now, their 2-year window wouldn't be until 2023, which is kind of what we're seeing right now. Also, I didn't mention this. This is what I wanted to mention earlier, and then I forgot, and now it just popped in my head. I believe the Star Wars license expires in 2023. So with delays and things like that, if they were to start it now and had a fast cycle, they still might not be able to get product out under this current license. So it'll be interesting to see if Disney and their powers to be and Asmodee and their powers to be are able to negotiate a contract extension for the Star Wars games and Star Wars Armada. And if they do that, then do they just hire a full development team and then start developing? Let's say if that happens, let's pretend tomorrow. We might see more effort into Armada based on that. But based on the time that it takes to get development for the game to production, to manufacturing, to shipping, to storefront, they might not have the license by the time it happens. And we actually saw something like this just recently with the Battlestar Galactica license. The Battlestar Galactica Starship game had multiple releases that were planned and almost to release point. They had like big ships that were planned, which would have been really cool. They had some scenario packs and some other things. And the negotiations for that license fell through, and all those current projects that were almost done were completely canceled. And I would hate for something like that to take place in Armada, is if they got almost done with developing an entire another wave or two of Armada, and then a licensing issue came up and they had to axe the whole thing. And they might have even made an announcement. Let's pretend that's the case. They could have made an announcement that we knew that we were going to get new ships, and then the licensing thing would override that, and then we wouldn't get any new ships, and we knew that there would be new ships out there. So that would have been extremely frustrating as well. So that's just more thoughts on that. Do I think that Clone Wars is competitive against the Rebels and Imperial ranges? They are. I see it as being about one wave behind. They really need another maybe fighter expansion and another ship each that will fill a role to completely fill out those factions. But for the most part, I think that the factions are viable. That doesn't necessarily mean competitive, but they are very viable. I think at most of the local or semi-big tournaments, it's hard to say because, pandemic. CIS does pretty well, and I think people are still figuring out the Republic. The Republic, I believe, right now has one of the largest learning curves of any of the factions, maybe right along with the Rebels, because Rebels just play the game slightly differently. But they have a lot of learning curve with how to use their fighters effectively, and all their upgrade cards trigger off of other upgrade cards and trigger off of commands, which then trigger off commanders. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces that you have to move around to get very high-tuned competitively list with the Republic. So I think CIS is in a little bit better place than the Republic, but Republic has just a high skill level to use. Yes, there are cards like Wolf that are clearly referring to things that are to come, or were at least mentioned to come. I believe, I'm gonna butcher his name. I believe, is it Michael Germs? Something like that. He was one of the lead developers of Armada. In a interview that was done about a year ago-ish, but before it was announced that AMG was going to take over from FFG, he was already talking that there were things in the works, and they included stuff like stations, which would be cool, and also that might be why some of the cards' wordings like proximity mines and what's the other one? Hyperspace rings might be worded where they are, when they clearly have things that they are meant to avoid with the other player, but like nothing else is going on in the game at that time, so who knows what that's about. Maybe that was in development, but that honestly makes me think that a lot of this has to do with there's just physically not enough time with how production and shipping and development for the game with everything going on with COVID and the pandemic is. So, referring to the license. So, that makes it difficult. Just glancing through stuff. Yeah, structural damage, Ken. So, for those of you that don't know, we have a Discord, and you can join us there. And recently, Ken and IrishMadCat played a game, and it doesn't matter if it's a real-life game on the channel or if it's a digital game across the ocean with Irish. The structural still came back and hit Ken. I feel bad, like I was laughing. I was out with my wife and it popped up and I'm like laughing. She goes, it's something with your game. I'm like, Ken drew a structural. It sucks. But I swear, like, the decks are just straight up loaded against him for structural damage. Yeah. It's funny. So, Muzzy asks, how do you feel about hyenas? I don't like red dice. I really don't like red dice on fighters. I understand that there's huge potential, and I've had them used very effectively for like 2 damage every single turn against me, but I'm lucky to get 1 hit, even with Bomber Command Center. Like, I've played with that not on the channel, and it still was a struggle. So we probably will see me. So here's me. If I struggle with something and may not like it, then you see me dive like full on into it. So you might see eventually a full on John dives into hyenas and makes the game painful for himself type of match. So stay tuned for that. Is there any rules stating you need to have the upgrade card like reactive gunnery if you wish to use it in the games without purchasing the Clone Wars production? So technically, the only time that you need all of the cards is in a tournament. For the most part, if you're at home, just proxy it. Who really cares? Especially if you're just trying to get into the game and learn the game and want to try something new. Go ahead and proxy it. I'm not saying to pirate. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying proxy it so then you can enjoy the game with your game components at home. And then just buy stuff as it becomes available, or if you want to. But for sure, at a tournament, you need the actual parts. If you guys saw my Sloan list a couple weeks ago, I had that really cool, I believe it's an Epsilon shuttle from the new series for my First Order TIE fighters and things like that. So I've brought that to tournaments. That's usually my tournament Imperial fighter list because no one else, I think, on the planet has their fighters painted First Order. So it's very easy for me to tell which are my fighters. But I still bring with me the original Lambda shuttle that I have painted, so that I start the game with my opponent. I'm like, this is what this is. if you want, I will put the original model back on, because technically you're not allowed to use anything that's not original to the game. And if they're cool with it, then I leave it. If not, I just put the proper model on. I've never had an issue with anyone because it's pretty straightforward. I'm not like changing the base ship or anything like that, but for cards for tournaments, you need the legitimate cards and the legitimate things. Even like the custom cards that people make for the game, technically you can't use those in a tournament. You need the hard copies, so I always bring extra copies of everything that I bring. So that's just a thought. So I can't really answer questions that speculate on what or what not, anything like that, for like playtesting or in development. My guess is that without a development team, any sort of development is very difficult. Yes, Gavin, CIS is Armada easy and Republic is Armada hard mode. Both factions can be used, but I honestly think that I really like the CIS because they're kind of Imperial-ish, which is also, I think, easy mode compared to Rebels for the most part. And I also really like the Guard because I like puzzle fleets. Yeah, so I think that's about it. So I've been enjoying doing these Backseat. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. Next week, let me look at my calendar real fast. We'll see what day I want to do another one of these things on. It'll probably be next Monday. But I will, of course, send out an announcement, and we'll be able to talk about it on the Discord channel, and I'll post announcements and things like that. Another question real fast. I'm curious why you don't put Lucid Voice on your Providence. And the reason for that is I hate red dice. And even with the red dice being red dice, being able to throw 3 of them, I would rather be able to put flat guns on my Providence and throw black dice at medium range than throwing an extra 1 red dice at long range. That's just me. I'm sure other people can would probably find really good use out of throwing 3 red dice at long range, but that's just doesn't work with my rolling style. So this might seem like a little bit of poor timing, but Ken and I actually have an announcement that we're going to be making this Tuesday, so look out for a trailer. You guys understand that it's not because we're leaving Armada. We have always been talking about diving into other games. Armada content is going to be remaining exactly how it is with the season format and Friday releases. This is just an addition to it. If you're one of our Patreons, you already know what the announcement is, and just so you guys all know, this actually has been in the process for Ken and I since pre-COVID, I think. Pre-COVID is when we were going to start getting into it. Everything went crazy. So we're finally to the point that we can start expanding into other content and things like that. So there will be an announcement video on Tuesday, and we're both excited for you guys to check that out and to watch it and let us know what you think. So like I said, the people over at Patreon actually have had a complete preview, like how does this look type episode that we're not releasing to general public because we just needed feedback for that. So if you'd like to go check that out and see what we're talking about, there's a link to Patreon to become a member. We also have our Discord, which obviously it lit on fire when the announcement was made the other day. We have a pretty positive group of people, and that's how we want to continue in the game, which is positivity and grow community instead of doom and gloom. So you can come join us and talk to some other positive Armada people on our Discord. So I hope you all have a great night. On behalf of Ken in chat, thank you very much, and I will catch you later on. I'm John, and this has been Eye on Radio.